Hello, I'm Mary Ito, and welcome to Cram. Thanks for joining me as we explore new and innovative research and big ideas that may change the way you think and act. When it comes to lying, we may not like it when people lie to us, but really, we lie all the time, right? We lie about how people look, how busy we are, how much we know, how we feel, any number of things. But why do we lie? How does it start? And can we tell if someone is lying? Kang Lee is a world-renowned expert on lying. He's a professor in applied psychology and human development at the Ontario Institute for Studies and Education at the University of Toronto. He studies moral development and the development of lying in children and young adults. In fact, his work led to legal reforms in Canada. Since 2006, child witnesses under 14 years of age must follow a procedure based on Dr. Lee's work before being admitted to testify in criminal court. Kang Lee joins me. Hello, Kang.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Oh, thanks so much for coming on. This is a fascinating topic. I want to start and ask you how you got interested in this work.
So when I was originally doing my PhD, I came across a lot of cases actually of alleged child abuse, and then at that time, and most of the cases would come to the court, and a lot of people would believe in the kids. And a few years later, people discovered in some situations the kids actually were not actually telling the truth. So then that was very surprising to me. And then because I always believed most of kids would tell the truth all the time, and lying because it's supposedly to be a morally wrong thing to do. And we are taught to be honest from very, very young age. So that was very surprising to me. And then when I looked deeper into the literature, I discovered there were very few studies done about lying in early childhood. So that's how I got started. One of the many reasons.
Okay, does everyone lie no matter what their age?
My answer to that is probably yes. So the majority of people will lie for a variety of reasons. A lot of reasons you already mentioned. Most of the lies we tell are so-called white lies. We lie because we want to spare others' feelings. You know, another person spend a lot of time make dinner for you or buy you a gift, and even you don't like the dinner, you don't like the gift, you have to say thank you very much. I love it. You know, I like it very much. Your
Right.
dinner is delicious, right? But otherwise, it's just not polite. So this is most of the time we tell this kind of lies on a daily basis, and then there are sometimes we have to tell lies to protect ourselves. Sometimes we may get into trouble. You know, as a child, we tend to get into trouble all the time, violate the rules our parents set. For example, we break our parents' cherished vows, for example, or sometimes we don't do what we're supposed to do. All these situations, now we know we're going to get punished one way or the other. So to avoid punishment, and then you lie about it. So to protect yourself.
What are those called? Those kinds of lies?
Well, I sometimes call the self-protective lies or self-interest lies, and these are lies actually we tell all the time, including we adults do that as well. Sometimes just we think it's inconsequential. For example, sometimes we calling in sick, even though we are not, and then so because maybe. You just don't feel like to go to work for the day, and then so you say, call your boss, say, I'm sorry, I'm sick today. Situations like this.
Yeah.
And there's one kind of lie we don't tell almost never. Most of the people is lies out of malice, lies to get other people into trouble, sometimes for no good reasons. So that kind of lie I've never seen among kids. I've seen
interesting.
The majority of kids, like 99% of the kids will lie at some point during development. But I've never seen one single child who tell lies to try to get another person into trouble for no reason, for entertainment.
Hmm. That makes me think then if it's like virtually never that you see that in a child, but it is more common in adults? Like maybe it's still rare, but it's a little more
It's
common.
rare. It's
Yeah.
rare, but it happens
It
among a small group of people.
okay.
So who have personality disorders. So
Ah,
they
okay.
sometimes lie just for the sake of lying, and but
Mm.
it's very rare. So if you run into a person who does that, you should run away from that person because it's this person would get you really really in trouble in many ways. So this is
Oh.
lying is one of the indicators of a very bad personality disorder.
Oh. Okay, so that those are 3 kinds of lies you mentioned. Are there any more?
Yes. So, and then there are other kind of lies. They are quite interesting. One kind of lie is called the blue lie. So, blue lies are lies told in the name of a group to protect the interests of a collective. So, the reason is called blue lies because these kind of lies were identified to be told mostly initially by police, but because police were in uniform, in blue uniform, so it's called the blue lies. Of course,
Oh.
this so these kind of lies are, actually not just told by police, but they're also told by people playing team sports. Sometimes they do, things that's against the rule, but they would lie to protect the whole group. And also in Eastern Asian countries, such as in China, Japan, and Korea, and the people grew up in collective societies. So therefore, the interest of collective is very, very important. So sometimes you feel compelled to tell these kind of lies. And then we children actually are socialized to protect the interest of collective far more than people in Canada or in the United States. So for that reason,
Oh. Hmm.
so kids in Canada hardly would ever tell blue lies for a group. However, kids in China, in Japan, and Korea sometimes would tell blue lies from about 9 years of age, and they tell more when they're 11.
Now, okay, so that could be when someone tells a lie to save a group, let's say, right? Um,
Mhm.
would the situation of someone telling a lie and actually taking on the responsibility of something negative, even perhaps death, to save someone else, would that fall under a blue lie?
That's also falling into blue lie, but the
Okay.
blue lie is broader. For example, so let's say my team plays against your team. But we actually cheat by having a team member who is a professional. But we say, no, 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 he's just a regular guy, And
Oh,
then we play the game and we win the game. And then when you ask, Marianne, you ask me, say, Kang, did you bring in a professional in your team? So no, 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 we didn't. So that it would be considered a bull lie. So it's not actually nice,
yeah,
right? It's
right,
unfair,
right.
to your team. But because, I lie on behalf of my group, I feel it's justified. So there's another kind of lie which is related culturally originated. So and the last kind of lie is I call the modesty lie. So modesty lies are very interesting ones. They are told mainly by people in Eastern Asia, like Japan, Korea, and China. So what happens is people lie about their own achievements and lie about their accomplishments. So, for example, so let's say Mary, you and I go to take the math exam, and then next day you ask me, Kang, how did you do on the math exam? Suppose I get 100%, I would say, oh, not very good, not very good. It was very difficult. I had tremendous of a challenge. I didn't do very well. But then it turned out I got 100%. You found out from somewhere else, and you'll be very upset. But for me, I feel like because you're my friend, I don't want to be different from you. So
Yeah,
therefore, I have to show modesty. I cannot
right.
say, I got 100%. So that's the kind of lies that people tend to tell in East Asia. But again, in Canada, some kids actually do tell this kind of lie, but a very, very small proportion of them. The majority of us would be very, very outwardly about these kind of situations. Yeah, I got 100% and feel very proud of it because that's good for your self-esteem. So in Canada, if you have to own up to your good deeds and achievements, because that shows you have self-confidence. But in contrast, in East Asia, that's something to be punished. I remember when I actually once exactly said, I got 100%. My teacher said, Kang, give me back your exam, and cross it out and take 5% off from my exam. See, well,
Yeah.
you show too much proud, so you lose 5%.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, that's it. And again, I guess it does tie to the collective mentality, right? Because you
Yes.
don't want to stand out from everyone else.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
exactly the reason. Yeah. So the
Oh,
collectivism has two parts. One is you have to act with the group and on their behalf and achieve the collective goals. At the same time, you do not stand out. You should be similar to everybody else.
yeah. Oh, um, okay. So your work, you really get to kind of the beginnings of lying. When do we start to lie?
So, according to my experimental work, the children begin to tell lies at about 2.5 years of age. But there are researchers who have done diary studies by parents, and the parents tend to report the earliest lies kids tell is around 14 months of age. So, because that's parents reporting, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes we
Yeah.
don't know whether
Right.
they have
Right.
this objective view of their kids.
Yes.
So
Right.
I
Right.
try to put some, some reservation about their reports. So I trust my own studies because we run the study in our lab. We
Mm.
set it up in such a way we can tell whether or not the child is lying. And by my kind of setup, I would say, I can confidently say, kids as young as 2.5 years of age begin to tell lies.
Why would a child so young, like 2.5 years of age, why would they start to lie?
Very good question. So I was fascinated by this as well because when we studied the 2.5-year-olds, only about 30% of them would lie. So the 70% of the kids would tell the truth about their transgression. So if they done something wrong, you ask them, "Did you do it?" 70% of kids will confess. They say, "Yeah, I did it." Even they knew they have violated our rules, but they would fess up to it. However, those 30% of kids would lie. So that made us wonder, who are these kids? Are they somehow there's something wrong with them? They have bad moral, bad personality. So when we look deeper into those kids who lie earlier than others, we discovered they are actually more cognitively developed. So they have two skills that are essential for lying. They already have it at the 2.5 years of age. Others will take about another 6 months or another year to get it. So one ability is so-called mind reading ability. So it's your ability to know, like what I know, difference is different from what you know. So which is the basis of lying, right? Because if I know you know what I know, so then there's no point of lying.
Lying,
So the
right.
reason I have to, if I lie to you, I have to know you don't know what I know. So
That's
that
right.
understanding is very, very important for us to function in our society. So if you don't have this understanding, you actually are going to have a tremendous amount of trouble in social interaction. So children with autism spectrum syndrome tend to have deficit in this understanding. So they don't quite understand that other people actually have their minds that are different from them.
Mm.
So that ability turned out to be acquired earlier by those early liars. So the 30% 2 year
Right.
2 years. And another thing we discovered is the self control is another very important ingredient for telling lie at this young age. So
Okay, that
again,
seems odd.
Exactly. So that's exactly what we were very surprised by that too, because we thought those kids who lie should have lower self control abilities,
Right.
but it turned out to be the opposite. So if those kids who have higher social self control abilities tend to lie sooner and tend to lie better. So the question is, why is that? Well, it turns out so when you tell a lie, so when you think about this, so telling a lie involves a lot of self control. So, number one, you know the truth, so you have to inhibit the truth. So you have to you say don't say it. You did it, right? Did you break mom's vase? The correct answer is yes. You know that the correct answer is yes. So you have to suppress it. So that inhibition requires a lot of self control. So you have to inhibit the truth, and then you switch over. You have to create a new truth. So,
Yes.
and you
Okay.
create a new truth requires
Mm.
also self control. And at the same time, you have to juggle between the real truth and the created the fake truth, and then make a statement to tell that untruth as if it's true. So think
Right.
about the way I'm describing the whole process of lying is already very complicated.
It is
And
so
it's
good. Yeah. Okay. So can I just ask you? So, in order for what you say to be true, right, then we have to believe that it is our natural inclination to tell the truth.
very good. Yes. The Our natural inclination from we are born, no, maybe it's biologically predisposed, maybe through our socialization from day one, as soon as we are
Hmm.
born, is we always being told the truth. We're always being encouraged to say the truth. And then the language learning process is really about telling the truth to each other. So we kind of built this kind of experience of truth. So this is very natural for us to see the truth. That's number one. Number two is lying is a very, very difficult thing to do because if you tell a lie for once, you have to keep that lie consistently there so that in the future, when people ask you questions, you would say something that does not contradict something you have created in your mind. And that is a very, very difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
So if you tell the truth, there almost requires no cognitive energy to use it because you just retrieve it from your memory. So you just say, I did that. Therefore, next time you ask me, I can tell you what happened. But if I create something untrue in my head that never happened, that memory is very weak and is not vivid. So that creates it's very difficult. Therefore, it's easy to tell the first lie. It's very, very hard to keep that lie consistent throughout our conversations. So if,
Or
at
and
some
even just
point,
through time, right?
exactly,
Because then you have to think
exactly,
back. Oh, I lied about that
exactly,
day and what I was doing, and I have to remember
exactly.
that now.
Exactly, which is extremely hard. We have done neuroimaging studies to show the lying involves high level of cognitive resources in the brain to be devoted to it. But if you are telling the truth, the brain is not as activated. So it doesn't use up the glucose that's needed, to the energies needed to tell the truth, but it requires a lot of energy to tell a lie. Therefore, naturally, we are not inclined to lie. So this just
Naturally.
it's not about morality. Okay, at this point, I'm
Okay.
not talking about
No, no, no.
morality
I
at all.
understand
I'm
that.
talking about,
Yeah. You know what, though? Would there be exceptions to that? Because when I think about, lying to protect yourself, right? To save yourself. Um, I mean, doesn't it depend whether that self control is stronger than our instinct for survival?
well, I think self control serves your instinct for survival. So when a child encounter a situation, let's say I'm the kid who broke mom's cherished vase. Mom comes over, says, "Kang, did you break my vase?" I'm looking at my mom's face and say, "What I'm going to do? What am I going to do?" Right? If I tell the truth, I'm going to be in big, big trouble. So what I can do is I can move my lips and I tell a story I think I can come up with on the spot, and then my mom is going to be convinced, then I'm out of the trouble. Just think about this. So I want to protect myself by telling a lie. And for lying in childhood is actually a very, very adaptive thing. So, because a child has no physical power, cannot overpower mom, right? So your mom wants to spank you, you cannot overpower
Yeah.
her. The mom also has this political power in the family, which I don't have as a child. So what can you do? So
Yeah.
lying is the most efficient, cost-effective method to protect yourself. So that's why we lie. And just think about this, right? If we go to work, your boss probably would not have to lie, but you sometimes may have to because of the power differential as well. So there are these. So when we kind of lying comes out of this adaptation to an environment that you may not have other strategies to fend it off certain kind of negative consequences. Then you go for lying because it's very simple, straightforward.
It's simple, right?
Request just
Now,
move
mind
your
you,
lips.
your boss may lie just to get you to do what he wants or she wants
That's
you to do, right? There is that too. Okay,
that's
and
there too.
yeah,
Yes.
okay. Let me
Well,
ask
by the
you.
way, I haven't studied that at all. So I've never studied how bosses lies to you to get you to do things they want you to do.
So I want to ask you. We've been talking in sort of generalities, right? Um, what you found in your research about when children start to lie? Why they lie. Does that tend to be true across cultures and gender?
Yes. So people always will ask me the question, are there gender differences in
Yeah.
terms of lying, right? So some people believe the girls would lie earlier, they would lie better than boys. The answer is no. Like I've done so many studies with so many kids across cultures. There's no gender difference whatsoever. So
Hmm.
at this point, I can say this. So if someone has found gender differences in lie telling, one is possibly it's a statistical fluke. Another is the person is lying. So I have so much data on my hand,
Yeah.
and I have analyzed the one way, the other way, no gender differences. So we kind of learn to tell lies almost on the same pace, regardless of where girls or boys.
So are we safe then in saying that lying is really intrinsic to humans? It's just part of our natural development?
So this is a very interesting question. I've been thinking of trying to answer this question for many, many years. That is there a genetic component to the way we learn to tell lies? And so far, I have not been able to answer this question,
Mm.
not because there are no methods available for us to do the study. Just unfortunately, my timing was kind of off because the way to study this is by getting twins, identical twins or
Mm.
fraternal twins, and looking at the developmental trajectory of their lie telling. So, in terms of research, it's not very difficult to do. This is called behavioral genetics method. But unfortunately, when I want to do the studies, and people have already moved on with other projects with their twin projects. So the twins are now very old now. So I want to study twins when they are very, very young. So far, I have not run into a twin study that starts at a very young age. Then I can come in around 2 years of age and then follow them up to see how their line develops. So far, I have not have an answer for this question. But I have a hypothesis that I do not believe we are biologically encoded to tell lies. Yeah,
Mm.
the reason we tell lies is because we have been provided with two powerful ingredients already that are very universally useful. Number one is self-control. Number two is mind reading ability. So these abilities are already very useful in our everyday social life. And then we, as humans, have enough intelligence to put the two and two together and use these two ingredients to make lying. So that's my belief. So therefore, it's not that we our genes suddenly get turned on at 2.5 years of age and then we begin to tell lies, but rather at that age, some kids happen to have stronger enough self-control and better enough theory mind or mind reading ability. They put the two and two together and then they lie.
Now, see, this is, if parents are listening to this, right? I mean, they might feel a sense of relief because most kids lie. But also in the back of their mind, I know they're worried because they think that lying might suggest some kind of character flaw or,
Yes.
parents think, oh my goodness, this is the start of something bad. Like, what if this gets
Yes.
worse and this child has a lifetime now of lying ahead of them? What do you say to
Yes.
that?
Yes, no, I share their worry because when I started my PhD thesis, I read an article written by Charles Darwin. So Charles Darwin actually was the very first person who wrote a scientific paper about early childhood lying. In that paper, he recounted his discovery, his 2.5-year-old son, firstborn child. His name is Dodie. So Dodie one day came out of the kitchen, and then his eyes were bright and face was red, and Darwin just saw him and said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Nothing, nothing," and go away, something like this. But from there, so he discovered that his son stole something from the kitchen because he stole sugar from the kitchen. So the sugar was all over his shirt. And then, on that day, he stole something. He lied about this. So Darwin was tremendously worried about this for a long, long time. And until later on, when his firstborn became a gentleman, as he put it, and he was relieved. So, this is all the parents' worry, including myself. But having been studying the early development line for so long, so I'm very convinced. So early lies are not indicators of any bad outcomes later on in life. So your kids are going to grow up totally okay. And the early lies, if your kids can tell lies at 2.5 years of age, I told everybody, you should open up a bottle of champagne and celebrate. Because your kids are doing great.
Parents they're going to hold you to this. You know that, Kang, right? They're saying, he said my kid's going to be okay.
Yes. But I do have to point out. So there's one thing very important. So number one, so if you catch your child lying frequently.
Yes.
And if you catch your child lying frequently, so your child would lie frequently, but you cannot catch it, which is a good sign. If your child lies and you can catch your child lies frequently, you have to pay attention. So that may indicate something different. So because children with early problems of behavior, it's called the conduct problems, and they tend to lie quite frequently, yet poorly. So their lies are easily detectable. And because of this, they are caught lying by teachers, by friends, and by parents. And so they may take on a different developmental trajectory than 99.99% of the kids. So these kids, we have to do interventions as early as possible, hopefully, before 6 years of age. And then we can, go through some training. There's a program in Toronto that has been very, very successful just to train kids with contact problems. And one of the components of that is training them kids to be honest. So there's and then through parenting as well to help parents how to bring up kids who do not constantly lie and lie poorly. So
that's good. That's important that you brought that up.
Yeah.
Okay, but I'm going to
sorry. Another thing I want to point out is if you see a child telling lies for no good reason, just for fun, and then you should be alarmed. So these are the two advices I would give parents. Sorry.
Oh, okay. So you said something, and it was I just twigged on it. I think you said that if kids lie and parents don't catch it, then that's okay. So how often do parents not catch, or how are they able to tell, I should say? Are they able to tell if their children are lying? Because many parents think they can tell, right?
They cannot. So this is a kind of a common belief we have. When our kids tell lies, they avoid eye contact, they look down,
Right. Yeah.
they show some kind of negative facial expressions. You immediately can tell they are lying. That's totally not true, because we've done many studies with different kind of adults, from university students to judges to lawyers to police officers to custom officers and to parents. And we show videos of kids telling lies or telling the truth. And none of these adults can they detect children's lies. So their ability, their accuracy to detect who is lying is basically 50%. This is like flip a coin.
Coin.
So
Yeah.
their ability is very poor. But I have to point out, we humans are very, very poor at detecting other people's lies.
Even
Our
as adults?
performance
As adults
as
too? Okay.
adults, yeah, to each other. So if you want to lie to others, go ahead.
Oh,
Nobody can
no,
tell
no,
you.
no, don't say that. Oh my gosh.
Nobody can tell you're lying. But at the cost of yourself, because you have to remember your lie and you have to carry that lie with you, and eventually it may give you away. So that
Yeah.
cognitive cost, I think, is too much. I would not recommend you to lie. But
Thank you.
if you
Thank you
lie
for that.
occasionally, but if you lie occasionally, I can guarantee you 99.99% of people will not be able to detect your lies. So we also have done
Oh
studies to
boy. This is
show
disturbing.
parents.
Kang, this is
Yeah,
really
this is disturbing.
disturbing
Yes,
information.
it is.
Yeah.
We've done studies having parents to detect their own children's lies. Their performance is at the chance level, that is 50%. So they might as well flip a coin. And they just cannot tell the kids are lying or telling the truth.
Do you know what? I'm going to have a rating on this podcast, and it's going to be no one under 18 should be listening to this, because I don't want to promote lying to them.
No, that's the why. Because I always wondered, like, I had a TED talk, and a lot of my fans, most of my fans are kids. So I don't know why. Maybe they probably know the secret, and they say, "Oh, someone's telling out my secret." Anyhow.
Okay. So here's the other thing, right? Parents are role models for their children, right? Um, so if everybody lies, that means parents are also lying to their children, right?
Yes.
Now okay,
Yes.
so what about that? What about the effect of
This
parents
is
lying to their children?
excellent question. Excellent question. Because this is so important. So this is something we've been working on for the last 10 years. So we're still at the beginning of it. So we discovered there's a kind of lies told by parents. We call it parenting by lying, or parental lies, or parenting lies. What it is lies parents tell in the name of parenting. So, for example,
Right.
if my kid is acting up in the grocery store, running around crying and threw a temper tantrum, and I couldn't stop him, what did I do? I said, okay, if you continue to do this, I'm not going to leave you here. So that would be a threat, right? So you threat to leave your child behind. That's one. Another one sometimes parents say is, I'm going to call the police and they are going to come and put you in jail, right? So that's another lie. So these kind
Yeah.
of lies we parents do tell to our kids. And then so we studied this and we discovered, if you do tell lies to your kids for parenting purposes as such, your kids are more likely to lie back to you. And so if you tell these kind of lies in early childhood, your kids will lie back to you during adolescence and in adulthood, during university. So that's one negative consequence of that.
Mm.
Another
Hmm.
negative consequence of that is that your kids are more likely to develop depression, anxiety disorders, and also have more so-called externalizing problems, basically aggression. So they are more likely to develop various negative mental health issues if you, as parents, lie to your kids. So just think about this, totally unfair. So that what I'm advocating is,
Yeah.
as parents, you must model honesty. So you try your best to tell the truth in front of your kids. and tell your kids in particular for parenting purposes. So don't lie to them. So your kids may lie to you. It's okay. That's what I'm saying. But as a parent, you actually have to tell the truth to them most of the time, and do not lie in front of them. For example, we mentioned about dinner thing. If we, let's say, take our kids to
Yeah.
go to dinner, and then we told the host the dinner is delicious, we love it. As soon as you come home, you say, "Oh, the dinner's awful." And then don't do that in front of your kid. Your kid immediately recognizes, "Hey, mom, or dad, you said you love the food. How come you come home? You said you don't like it?" Something like this. So if you do that, you really have to justify it. Tell your child the distinction between the polite white lies versus other kind of lies. Otherwise, your kids are going to be confused. So that is something we really have to be careful. I
Mm.
remember one of my sister once told my niece when there's someone knocking on the door, and she told my niece, "Tell the person I'm not at home." And then so she just opened the door, said, "The mom told me she's not at home." Something like this, right? But that's not my point. My point is, do not tell your child to lie either. So for example, I don't know, this may happen among one of our audience. Sometimes you go to a subway, or you go to a ball game. It says, if the kid is under 13, you get a free ticket, or you can get in. And you say your kid is already 14. You say, "Oh, my kid is only 12." Right? You think that would save you a few bucks, but that would kind of implant your child's head that dad or mom has lied. So this kind of lie looks very small. It actually accumulates in your kid's head, and that in turn would lead them to lie back to you, and then develop these mental health problems.
Oh. It makes me think too, and I don't know what this would be called, but many times parents will say what they think they should say to their child, right? You should be honest, you shouldn't cheat, you shouldn't do this. And then they turn around and they do the opposite
Yes,
through their actions,
yes,
which children see, right? So
yes,
then they know it's a lie. They
yes,
know that what they
exactly.
said. No, I don't know what you call that,
Yeah,
but
so
that is also
yeah, parenting lies. There's a parental lies or
that
parenting
is part
lies.
of parenting
Yeah,
lies.
the parenting.
Okay.
Yeah, so I have a very good example. A colleague of mine from University of Waterloo did a study, and by tape recording parents and kids interactions at home, and some parents would say, "Oh, Kang, my boss is broken, but if you tell me the truth, I will not be mad." Then kids say, "Oh, mom, I'm sorry, I broke your vase." You know what happened? Most of the time, parents became mad. So at the child. So now from that
Mm.
point onward, the child say, "Oh, next time I'm not going to confess. Mom's lying to me about, telling the truth." So as a parent, for some reason, kids kind of trust parents so much. So when you lie, they feel very, very offended, including, so there's something also interesting about promise. For example, we adults sometimes promise, and we break promise because something
Yes.
comes up, right? But to kids, a promise is promise. So if you don't live up to your promise, which is in the future, they will consider you to have lied. So they want to uphold you for your promise. And if you fail to live up to your promise, they think you have lied. So this is a different kind of definition for lying. But for
Yeah.
kids,
Yeah.
that's a very, very serious violation of their moral code.
You know, oh my goodness, that is true because I think about stories I've heard from adults, and many of us can often remember when our parents disappointed us for the very first time. So they were perfect human beings, right, in our
Yes,
eyes as children. And
yes,
then something happened. And it's usually, I think it's often that they broke a promise. They said
yes,
something, they didn't come through. And then we remember that. We're so
yes.
upset and hurt by
Yes.
it.
And if we ask kids about this, they would say, "Mom lied, dad lied." To them, that's
Mm.
lying. But this actually, philosophically, this is not lying, because it's your promise for the future. For some reason, you break it. And so you
Right.
fail to live up to your promise, but it's not lying. But from the child's point of view, this is a lie that is very, very serious.
And then, okay, what about with children? I mean, their parents are, they're everything to them, right? They're their first role models. Um, you did this study about whether children would lie to save their parents,
Hmm.
which I thought was so fascinating.
Yes, no, I love that study too. I would tell you, and then in that case, so we did a study. So we always thought, the bond built up between the mother and the father and the child is so strong from so young. Then sometimes the kids would lie for their parents. It's obvious, right? They tell lie as young as 2.5 years of age. By 4 years of age, 80% of kids will lie. By about 7, almost 100% of kids will lie. So when you think about this, then so they should lie for their parents, at some age. So we did a study in which we set kids up. So parents would come to our lab and we instruct them to purposely break our toy. And then when the toy is broken, the mom then said to the child, I'm sorry, it said do not touch, but I thought it was interesting. I touched it. It's broke. So can you promise me that you don't tell these people that I broke it? So then basically that's what it is. And then we send the parents off to do something else. Then we sit down with the kids and say, oh, tell me what happened when I'm away. The majority of the kids will say, mom or dad did it
Oh
immediately
gosh.
without asking. You don't have to even ask the question, right? If you ask the
Yeah.
question, then almost 99% of kids will tell the truth. So without asking, I think about 10% of kids will say, I don't know what happened. But as soon as you ask, so tell me, I see that the toy is broken. So who broke the toy? And then the kid will say, oh, mom did it. So, and then I said, did mom tell you not to tell us? Yes. Something like that. So,
Kang, I have to tell you, I watched that video of the little girl and the mother. And I was laughing because when the mother leaves the room and the researcher comes in and she says, what happened?
yes.
What did you and your mom do? Right. She doesn't even specifically ask the child, did your mom touch anything? Or,
Yeah.
the question was barely out of her mouth. And the child is like, oh, my mom, she touched those
Exactly.
toys.
And
Yeah.
I don't know you noticed, we actually on purpose put the toy on the shelf so the child
Yes.
couldn't not reach it. Because otherwise, the child may say, if I say mom didn't do it, then it could be me because there were two people in the room, right? So we on purpose set
Right.
it up. In our study, we actually told the kids, say, oh, the toy is so high up. It couldn't be you. There's no way that's you. Just you couldn't reach it. Even when that happens, kids will still tell the truth to sell their parents out.
Okay, so can I just stop you
Yeah.
for a sec? Because I want to know whether. So when I saw that, I was flummoxed. I thought, why would the child not save her mother? Why would she do that? And so I went to my child, told her the scenario,
Yes.
and I said, I don't understand why that child wouldn't have, in this sense, told a white lie. And right away, my child said, Mom, because the child was protecting herself. It was self preservation because maybe she would get into trouble if they found out she was lying. Is that true?
So we thought that was true. I don't think that's true because we already
Oh,
absolved their responsibility. We told them that couldn't be done, right? So in that situation, so they are not responsible for the broken toy. So then they can
okay.
lie for their parents, but they don't. So
Why? Yeah.
so this is the part you asked the question why. So let me tell you, I stopped doing the study. The reason for that is this study is very traumatic to my researchers because they feel so bad about this. So because parents come in with this hope their kids are going to help them, when they are in trouble,
Yeah.
but they
Right.
go away, majority of them with their kids not protecting them at all, and sell them out immediately. So that made my research assistants very very upset. So, after that study, they said, "Kang, we will never do the study again." So we put away this research method.
Really?
Yeah, for over 10 years
I am
now.
so okay. I'm really surprised because okay, it's not a nice thing for sure that that this was the result, but that's science.
Yeah, it is.
Like
It's nice. But
that's
yeah, I know.
science. That's
I love the study. I want to do a lot
yeah.
more to follow up. But my students said, Kang, no, that's the last.
No.
So I
So
have to
you're
care.
telling me that you don't know what, like you didn't investigate as to why?
No,
Why these kids
the
lie?
only thing I've done is we know it's not because kids would find themselves to be in trouble. We know that's true. So because we already absolved their responsibility for
Yeah.
breaking the toy. So that we know. But why the same child would tell a lie to conceal their own transgression when they,
Yes.
transgress in my
Yes.
love, they
Yeah.
don't they
They
lie
tell that's right. That
immediately.
seems contradictory, doesn't it?
Fully
It does seem
contradictory, right?
contradictory.
So the
Yeah.
difference is one is for yourself, one
Self.
is mom. Mom, it's okay to sell her out.
Oh gosh.
But for
I
me,
don't
it's
like
not.
this. I don't like
I
it
know.
either.
You see, that right? My students just didn't like it, so they said, "Kang, I'm not going to do it." So we kind of sealed off this method for over 10 years now, and nobody apparently in the field are replicating this study. So for some reason, as well.
Is that, oh
Yeah,
my gosh, because children come out. It's brutal. This
it
is
is
brutal
totally, yeah.
evidence.
It's very, very, very difficult to debrief the
Yeah.
parents afterwards. So I think that's why my students were not happy. But I
Oh,
was
I see. Right.
also,
Because when you talk to the parents, they were
yes,
upset. I'm sure they were
they were not
upset.
upset. You can
No?
tell they were unsettled. So
Unsettled.
yeah, so you're their justification is, well, my kid is good and
Yeah.
honest, which is good. But the
This
way
is
they
just,
said it, we felt wasn't that positive. So that's
yeah,
why
yeah.
I think parents are not going to be, have
Yeah.
grudge against their kids afterwards.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
still, I think my researchers just feel that, they just feel there could be mental health issues to themselves if they
Oh my
continue to do the
goodness.
study. So
You know what, Kang? I have so many more questions and we've run out of time. And I did want to get to, you did a lot of studies, again, fascinating about what really works when it comes to curbing lying in
yes,
children. I wonder if you could come back and we could talk about that.
certainly.
And also just, what happens later on as we get older, once we're teenagers, what happens to lying? You've done a lot of work as well with university students and
Yes,
lying on exams and tests.
yes,
Would you come back and we can chat about that
certainly,
again?
certainly, certainly. Yes.
Fantastic. This was great. Thank you so much
Okay.
for
Thank you
coming
so
on the
much for having
podcast.
me, Mary. Yes.
That's Kang Lee. He is a professor in applied psychology and human development at the Ontario Institute for Studies in Education, and he studies moral development and the development of lying in children and young adults. For more info on Dr. Lee's work, including his fascinating TED Talk, you can check out our show notes. That's it for this edition of the Cram Podcast. Hope you enjoyed it. Our thanks to the Temerty Foundation for their generous support. And you might also be interested in our literary podcast called Passage to Wonderland. I highlight compelling passages from books that offer discovery, insight, and a sense of completion for the end of your day. You'll find Passage to Wonderland wherever you get your Cram Podcast. Thanks very much for joining us. See you here next time.